This video is brought to you by Squarespace. This is my brand new book, and it is everything I think and feel about the world of street photography, including a bunch of my favorite photographs I've taken over the years, the creative process, how I like to go about street photography, my approach, all with the idea to help you get better at street photography, enjoy street photography, or even try street photography for the first time. This is Find Your Focus, a street photography masterclass. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but very soon you will be able to walk into one of many different retailers, pick this off the shelf and buy it for yourself. I can't believe it. I have a legitimate published book. Wild. So let's talk about what's actually in this book and what this video is all about. So from a literal perspective, there are 20 chapters in here covering some practical stuff as well as some more conceptual ideas and just everything that I think about when I'm out on the streets taking pictures and how I feel about photography in general. When I was making this book, the main thing I felt like I was doing was having a conversation with younger me. When I think about 19-year-old Mike, when he moved close to London and started wandering around the city with the camera, I was facing all sorts of creative challenges and problems like we all do when we pursue anything. And when I started putting this together, I realized that this felt like a conversation with that version of me. What problems and ideas and hurdles was I coming up against? Well, I think if I had this book 10 years ago, it would have been very helpful. So that's the idea behind this. Before I dive into some of the ideas in this book and spoil it for you a little bit, I wanted to let you know that pre-orders are available in the US at the end of September and at the start of October for UK buyers. If you live outside of those areas, I'm pretty sure, depending on where you buy it from, delivery is also available worldwide. So I'll leave a link for this in the description for pre-orders. There is a link to a few different retailers so you can choose where you'd like to purchase it from. Without this becoming some sort of bedtime story reading session here on YouTube, I'm going to open this up, pull out a couple of different ideas from a few different chapters in no particular order, break down some of the concepts and share some more thoughts with you. Obviously, I would just do a few ideas in here, not the entire thing, or else this video will be far too long and there'll be no point in you buying the book yourself. So without further ado, let's focus on a couple of key ideas. Okay, this is one of my favorite chapters. Number 6, people watch. And you may have heard me describe this before, but street photography is just a visual demonstration of people watching. And I do find that everybody enjoys people watching. Everybody is a little bit nosy, even if they say they're not and they don't care for other people. Side note to this chapter specifically, I find that there are two things that people look at when they see a picture. The first thing is contrast of any kind. So the focal point of an image is often the contrast between either light and dark or colors or shape. I think the most obvious thing when you see any type of art is contrast that exists in whatever form that might be. So I know that's kind of a general statement to say that people are drawn to contrast, but if I had to describe what the human beings look at when they see art, is contrast. The second thing human beings look at when they see a photograph is other human beings, more specifically themselves. If it's a photograph of themselves. It's funny when you see a group picture of 20 people and then everybody looks at that same picture. Nobody looks at anybody else. Everyone goes to look at themselves. So I always find that funny. But yes, human beings look at other human beings. So street photography, documentary photography, the history of photography as we know it, it's really always about people. Within this chapter about people watching, I talk about invisible compliments. So I'll read this to you. When the crowds are swirling around you, how do you know who is worth photographing? A nice exercise you can do is dole out invisible compliments. Have a go. You don't need a camera. Try it while you're at a cafe or waiting for the bus. What jumps out to you? Soon enough, you'll see some shoes that you like or notice a bag in a striking orange color. All you're doing is people watching, but with a running commentary in your head. I like the way the light bounced off that person's hat. That family all just smiled at each other. That was such a lovely moment. The way that kid was leaning against the bus window looked a little bit sketchy. It's noticing, but it's also appreciating. That internal monologue is where triggers spring from. If you had a camera, that's what you would photograph. Taking the photo is a technical exercise, but seeing the photo is a mental exercise. Street photographers are natural observers. Diving a little bit further into the chapter, I say certain images become more interesting if a person is anonymous. Now, I think with street photography, sometimes there is a lot of commentary around you must see people's faces and you must see or identify what that person is doing. If you're shooting the back of somebody's head, that can't be a good street photograph. And we'll talk maybe a little bit more about the rules around street photography in a little bit. But I think this can be an interesting perspective. And the idea is that if a person is anonymous, it can still be interesting. So not having access to the full story can create intrigue. For example, if their eyes are covered, that sense of mystery can elevate the shot. And then there's an example image in the book here. I was drawn to how the light is falling on this guy on the left, who is just taking a nap on the commute from Manhattan to Staten Island. I thought it was just perfect. What an outfit to fall asleep in. The complementary colours of his trousers and top, the hat and all the chains. This was taken during golden hour with the summer sun setting at about 8 p.m, bathing the man in this incredible light. From what he's wearing, he seems like an interesting character. You have questions about who he is, where he's going and what he's doing. These are all somehow heightened by the fact that his face is hidden. Other times you need the person to be fully visible for the picture to make sense. The picture above looks like, another example here, looks like it could have been shot in the 80s or the 90s or even 70s, but it was actually 2024. Sharp suited, he seemed like a man who was on a mission as he crossed the road right in front of me. As soon as he stepped onto the pavement, I took the photograph. So right there, without going much further, is examples of two photographs that I do like. One where the person is a little bit of a mystery and we can't see their face, and another photograph where the face is actually quite important. So do what you will with that information. But that chapter there is all about people watching. I just want to take a moment to thank the sponsors of this video, Squarespace. One of my favorite things about having a website is being able to organize, categorize, display, and curate my own galleries, away from something like Instagram and away from just sending images to people on WhatsApp. If you're considering starting a website, but you don't have anything to sell and you think that a website is a little bit overkill, I do recommend at least having an online gallery, just for your own sanity of creating, organizing, selecting, sequencing, and doing whatever you need with your images, as there aren't many other places for you to do that. And of course, if you want to go one step further than just hosting a gallery of images online, I use Squarespace to sell physical and digital products. I write blogs on there, as well as a weekly newsletter called The Focal Point. I basically use Squarespace to run my entire online business, and I have done that for years, and it has been nothing but straightforward and a breeze to manage. In just a few clicks, you can choose from one of their many beautiful online templates, or you can even let AI do the heavy lifting for you, and you can quite literally have a website up and running in minutes. If you are interested, take advantage of the 14-day free trial. Head to squarespace.com/Mike Chudley to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thank you so much to Squarespace for the continued support over the years. Let's get back to the video. I thought I'd let you know how this book came about, because even though it's got my photographs in there, my name is on the front and my words are inside, I cannot take 100% credit. So for about 6 months during the process of making this book, I would speak to a photography copywriter, niche job, I do think. I'd speak to a copywriter called Rachel, who would interview me essentially on everything I think about in the world of street photography and the creative process, generally speaking. Those hour-long phone calls for a handful of months felt like photography therapy, and I thoroughly enjoyed those conversations. I would just brain dump all my thoughts to Rachel on the phone, and then she has made that into something coherent that actually makes sense. Because if I was tasked to put pen and paper and write this from scratch, I really have no idea where I would start. So over the course of a year, after I brain dumped all my thoughts on street photography, me and Rachel went back and forth and decided on the structure of it, the different chapter titles, the concepts, things that were important to me, things that weren't that so important to me, some ideas that I'd been working through over the year. And basically that's how those 20 chapters came together. And I think the way they've ordered the book, the way they've sequenced the book, the way the book is designed, that is all really credit to the publishers themselves. I contributed my 2 pence. I suggested where the photographs should go. Obviously, I submitted the photographs themselves. But the way this book came together, I can't really believe it. I'm super happy that it is the way it is. And yeah, I just want to thank the team that I worked with that made this happen, because it feels like it's not even my book, even though my name is on the front. It feels too good to be true, honestly. Okay, chapter 9. I think some people might find this interesting, and perhaps a few people might disagree with me here, but let's see. So, chapter 9, this is called Break the Rules. I think with street photography, just off the bat, everyone has their own idea of what it is and what it isn't, and this conversation around defining street photography is a never-ending discussion, is what it feels like online. And I thought this chapter shares my thoughts on the matter, and let's see what you think. Know the conventions of composition, but be open to the unexpected. Every street photographer should be familiar with the fundamentals of composition, because without them, there's no foundation to build on. You can't grasp what makes a great photograph without first figuring out what a good one looks like. The most fascinating subject can get lost against a messy background, but step slightly to the left and suddenly the subject is isolated, powerful, and clear. That's the kind of control that's available to you in real time, if you're paying attention. Composition is not just about how things appear, it's about how they relate, and your job is to visualize that. So do your homework, read up on the rule of thirds, leading lines, simplifying the scene, and filling the frame. All of these guidelines give you a good grounding. Once they are embedded in your system, you can ignore them if the moment requires. Let's say a face is creeping into the bottom left corner. That defies the rule of thirds. But if that face is emotionally gripping, suddenly it works, precisely because it's unanticipated. Some photos draw you in, not despite having the wrong composition, but because of it. And just skipping ahead a little bit, as with any creative endeavor, there are street cliches, but you can lean into them if you want, if they make you, the photographer, happy and excited to go out and shoot. And then I think I talk about silhouettes coming up here. As with the rules, it's important to know what these cliches are and intentionally decide what you want to do with them. Everybody knows what a silhouette looks like, but no one's seen the one you're photographing at that moment. And that's the difference. And then also, without revealing too much, while we're told that the greatest compositions bring harmony and balance, not every image succeeds in the same way. Some work precisely by breaking the rules. I think the fact here is the rules are different for every scene you look at. And even though you understand and know, for example, what the rule of thirds are, that doesn't mean that the rule of thirds will make your image better, and some judgment and taste comes into play from the photographer themselves. Let's do one more, and I think I want to share chapter 13, which is mix and match. Yes. So as you can see here, there's a guy on the right who's in high vis, and he's sat next to a can of Fanta in the same color. So we're quite literally mixing and matching elements with this one. This starts by saying, many of the strongest street photographs deploy contrast, repetition, or both. Do you remember playing Snap as a kid? You divide the deck, take turns to flip over cards, and the first player to spot a match keeps the pair. Street photography sometimes reminds me of that. Out on the streets or later on in the edit, you're looking for connections. These might even be blatant, a person sitting at a table or walking past a wall that somehow mimics exactly what they're wearing. Sometimes it's so glaringly obvious it feels deliberate. You want to tap them on the shoulder and ask if they've realized. But even then, it's not that the matching elements in your hypothetical game of street snap are ever identical. In fact, it's less a game of snap and more of an echo. You're looking for colors, concepts, words, or shapes that feel connected by similarities and differences. When I took the photograph on page 93, I'll show you that on screen, I was shooting around the Bank of England in summer 2025, and I noticed these two black bollards with red detailing on them. Then a lady walked through to look at the map on the pavement. Unknowingly, she stood right between the bollards. I do remember this like it was yesterday. And she was all dressed in white with red detailing. Snap. The scene was so symmetrical and she'd stopped exactly where I wanted her to, but seen from my eye level, she wasn't in line with the posts. The connection wasn't correctly aligned, but that's something well within my power to change. In the space of a few moments, I mentally skipped through the alternative perspectives. I picked the ideal one, crouched down so my camera was at the same height as her waist, her head was suddenly the same height as the pillars, and then, as if by magic, she became part of the pattern. Generally, that chapter there is one of the most practical in the book, and it's a game that I'm always playing when I'm out on the street, and you might have heard me say this in videos before, but I'm constantly looking for one thing that relates to another thing. And that might be the contrast between two things and the difference between two things. But often it's about playing Snap and realizing that that element over there does have a connection to this element over here, and figuring out how you can frame that within your 35mm frame. And sometimes I see something on that side of the street and see something on that side of the street, and I would just love for them to collide in the same frame. But sometimes, most of the time, it's not possible. But that's the game we're playing. So I think it's fun to try and compare it to the game of Snap, because sometimes you see it, but you're too late, and you're too late to call it out, literally. But sometimes you see it happen right in front of you, and I love that magic, and I'm always looking for it. Very quickly, before this video ends and you go ahead and buy the book, because that's obviously what you're about to do, I do just want to express some gratitude, because even if I did have all of these thoughts and everything in this book was just pure wisdom and it was the most intelligent thing you've ever read or heard in your life, let's pretend that's true. No one would know about it if it wasn't for you watching this video. There's no way a publisher would reach out to just some random guy that does street photography if they didn't think that it would sell a few copies. And the only reason this is going to sell a few copies is because of you right now, the person sat watching this video. And even though sometimes it's just a number on my screen, whether it's my subscriber count going up or views going up and down, I know that it's very real individuals behind the screen, behind the number. And I'm fortunate enough to meet a lot of you when I'm out in the streets wandering around or wherever I'm traveling. And it's amazing to have real conversations with real photographers that are watching the content. And yeah, I don't want to get too soppy about it, but when I make these videos, I'm just sharing the thing that I'm incredibly passionate and interested about. But I cannot believe something like this has come of it. So yeah, even if I was to make this all by myself and just produce something like this, yeah, that's cool. It's really sick that this exists, but it's even cooler that it's going to exist in your hands. And I just have you to thank for that. So that's with the assumption that you're going to buy it. If you don't buy it and you're just watching me talk, then cool. Thank you as well. But if you do go ahead and buy this from wherever you buy it, seriously, it means the world. All right, I think that's it. Link in the description. Go ahead and pre-order the book. I hope some of the ideas and insights I've shared in this video have made you think or made you interested in pursuing street photography a little bit more. I think the only thing left to do is go outside and take some pictures, because that's what this is all about. So until next time, I'll see you very soon. Peace.